Acceptance is simply choosing peace rather than staying stuck in this endless ongoing fight. Acceptance is the doorway that is going to lead you to the freedom that you're seeking. It's not the end of the road. Welcome to the Shannon McCabe Show, where we break free from our drink-obsessed culture, challenge the myths around alcohol, and redefine sobriety as the empowering choice it truly is. I'm Shannon McCabe, sober coach, holistic nutritionist, and your guide to a life that feels better without booze. Whether you're newly sober, sober curious, or years into this journey, this podcast is here to give you the truth about alcohol, the tools to build lasting confidence, and the hope that a vibrant, fulfilling life is waiting for you on the other side. So grab your coffee or sparkling water and let's dive in. The juicy part of this chat I want to dive into today comes from a question or a comment from one of you guys that was talking about really just like needing and wanting and actually just feeling pretty desperate. And I remember this desperate feeling to just make peace with the fact that you cannot moderate, that you cannot drink the way people around you appear to drink. And I do say appear to drink because when we're in this phase of wrestling with all of the new stuff we're learning about alcohol and changing a relationship with it, it's really easy for us to tell ourselves that we're the only one struggling and we're the only one with this problem, and that everybody around us appears to be able to drink normally. And I just want to remind you guys that that is so not an accurate picture. Okay. There are very likely many people in your life that are struggling with alcohol to some degree or another. They're just not facing it yet like you are, or maybe they still just hide it better. And so you don't know. Now, all that being said, there definitely are probably people in your life that really can have just one or two drinks. And it doesn't affect them the way it affects you. One drink does not make them want 7, the way it makes us probably want 7. Okay. There are always going to be people like that. My husband is one of those people. Still, to this day, he can have 1 or 2 drinks. I don't even see the point in it, honestly. I've never understood it, but he can. And accepting that, he and I both had to really work to accept that the way we drink, the way our brain is wired to drink, was completely different. And what worked for him was never going to work for me. And he also, while now can be very understanding and very supportive, cannot fully grasp the way my brain responds to alcohol. And so for years, part of the struggle was him saying like, well, let's just drink on weekends, or let's just have 1 or 2 tonight. And I felt inherently broken because I couldn't do that like he did. But then once I started to learn and started to understand, well, my brain is not wired that way. And if my brain is not wired that way, it is never going to be wired that way. Okay. So all of this comes back to today's topic of how do we just accept this? How do we make our peace with the fact that we cannot moderate so that we can get to the point where we don't even want to moderate? So we can let go of this fantasy and this feeling of loss over not being able to moderate. This all comes down to acceptance, you guys. So that's what I want to talk about today, is how do we embrace and embody acceptance on this journey? And one of the first things that we can do, you guys, is to shift how we're looking at acceptance and shift how we're thinking about it. Because this is the truth, you guys. Acceptance is not giving up, okay? Acceptance is not like admitting defeat or admitting that you're like weak or powerless or broken or there's something wrong with you. Acceptance is simply choosing peace rather than staying stuck in this endless ongoing fight, okay? So you're not weak for needing or wanting to stop drinking. You're strong for being honest with yourself about what's going on. Acceptance is like, think of it as a doorway. Acceptance is the doorway that is going to lead you to the freedom that you're seeking. It's not the end of the road. Acceptance is not like closing the door so that you live in like this dark, scary place forever. Acceptance is actually opening the door to the freedom and the peace and the confidence that you want, okay? So let's bring this back to the question at hand, is that how do we accept that we cannot moderate? Again, so that we can even move beyond that and get to the point where we eventually don't even want to moderate. We don't wish that we could. it's really important for you guys to remember that you're not alone in this. Like, you're in a place that many of us have been. I absolutely spent a long time wishing I could be a normal drinker. I spent a long time wishing I could moderate, even wishing that I could be like my husband, who can just have one or two and be done, and then go weeks or months without drinking, and it does not even faze him. He doesn't even think about it. But that's also what helped me start to realize why I have a problem and he doesn't, because the very idea of needing or wanting to moderate, the people that just do that normally, like my husband, they don't even have to call it moderation, because alcohol has zero control over them. So that's a truth that I always really worked hard to start to embrace, is that the fact that I had this huge lofty goal of moderation is actually the proof of how deep my problem goes, okay? And so how can we accept that we can't moderate, that wanting to moderate is actually a sign of our problem, and learn to just let go of it all and make our peace with it, okay? It's okay when you're going through all of this to feel really sad, and then really angry, and then really mad, and then maybe even go back to denial about it and try to moderate again. It's okay to grieve the version of your life that you thought you would have where you could be a normal drinker, okay? Grief is a huge part of this process. I mean, we don't go into that a ton here. It is actually a huge part of the process we walk through in the blueprint, because it is a very real part of letting go of alcohol for good. But know that it is okay to grieve the place alcohol has had in your life, okay? And even if right now you are still wishing that you could moderate, that's okay too. That doesn't mean that you're failing at all. It doesn't mean that you're failing at this. It means that you're just human. You're human. And you're still trying to let go of that fantasy and still trying to accept your reality, okay? Let's keep chatting about acceptance here, because it's important for you guys to remember that acceptance is not the same as approval, okay? So just because you are working towards accepting a truth right now, it doesn't mean that you have to like it. It just means that right now you're starting to choose to stop fighting reality. The first step of acceptance is that it's like admitting what the reality is for you and saying like, okay, this is exhausting. I don't want to keep fighting this reality anymore. And that reality is understanding things like moderation works for some people, even though, like I said, the people that really can truly moderate, they don't even call it that, because they don't even need a name for it. Alcohol takes up zero space in their brain and in their life. You and I are not those people, and that's okay. That's not a moral failing on our part. It's just information, it's facts, and that gives us clarity, and we can draw power from that clarity, okay? But remember that we don't have to love something to accept it. We don't have to be happy about something to accept it. We just need to stop pushing against it. We just need to stop resisting it for long enough to find our way forward so that we can move past it, okay? So I want to invite you guys to kind of help put this in perspective. Zoom out for a second and look at your broader life. Think about the whole scope of your life. Is there another time or place, either for you or for a loved one, where you had no choice but to accept something that was really hard? Okay, so an example that came to mind when I was thinking about this chat, you guys, is one of my best friends. One of my best friends for my whole life really struggled with infertility for years after she got married. They tried everything. If you have been through that journey yourself, or if you have loved someone through that journey, you know how exhausting and how heart-wrenching it is. But finally, they had to just accept that they were not going to be able to have their own biological children. They had no choice but to face that truth. So then they could do one of two things. They could sit and be angry and resentful and sad and depressed about it, or they could take control of what they could and look into other ways to become parents. And so that's what they did. They decided to adopt and eventually adopted 2 children. So their journey of acceptance helped them get to like their ultimate goal and what they wanted, which was to be parents. Of course, it wasn't the way that they thought it was going to look, but it doesn't mean that they don't like love those kids just as much as they would have loved their own biological kids. So the point is, they chose to adapt to their reality rather than spend their energy trying to change something that they could not change. Rather than give their energy to anger and resentment and sadness. Not that those feelings might not pop up from time to time, but they don't like set up camp and live there, right? Which is a choice. We can sit and be angry and sad and resentful and depressed forever, waving this flag of, it's not fair that I can't drink like everybody else, or it's not fair that I can't moderate. Or we can use that energy to control what we can, which is how we show up with this new truth that we cannot take or leave alcohol. We can start building a life that fits us and our brain and our body and what is real for us. Okay, so I encourage you to spend some time thinking about zooming out like that. Are there situations that you've already gone through in life where you had to just accept something? It didn't mean that you were happy about it at first. It didn't mean that it was great in the beginning, but you had no choice but to just accept it. Okay, you guys, because when we do this, this is the whole point. What happened to my friends, what happens to all of us when we work on just acceptance in this quitting drinking journey is this is how we unlock peace. When we're not constantly in a fight with ourselves, when we put all of that like angst and negative energy to rest, now we have space to feel other things. We can be proud of ourselves. We can grow our confidence in being alcohol free. We can grow the sense of freedom. We can notice all of the ways that we are actually free and better off because we're not giving any more time and energy to alcohol. So these things can be true at the same time. You can be sad right now that moderation didn't work out for you, and also be incredibly grateful for what you gain from being able to step away from alcohol, okay? You're not here, you're not inside this group, you're not in my world because you can't drink. You're here because you are being honest about what happens when you do drink, and you're choosing something else. You're choosing something better. You're saying to yourself, that is not good enough for me. That is not how I want to feel anymore. I want to feel better, so I'm going to do something better. And that's what this is all about, right? You guys, that's the work that we do, because that's the work that changed my life, and I've seen change so many other women's lives up to this point now, is that removing alcohol does not have to be about deprivation. It's about deciding to like stop hurting ourselves and trying to force a version of drinking that just isn't working. Maybe it worked in the past, but a lot of times when we start to examine it, it really never actually worked all that well. There was always negative side effects that maybe we just made so normalized that it was okay for a long time, and now we're just saying that it's not okay for whatever reason. It's our physical health, it's our mental health, it's our relationships, it's anything. But you're here because you've decided that you want better, and you do deserve better. And that path to getting better comes with growing our acceptance of what we cannot change. And remembering that that's a choice, you guys. We all can just make that choice and what we focus on. Okay, so what I want to leave you guys with, think of this as a little bit of homework of sorts, because that's what I do. This is what coaches do. This is what my coaches do for me. This is what I do for you guys, okay? I want you to take a few minutes, either right now or come back to this when you have, maybe on a walk, maybe when you have your journal out. I want you to answer some things for yourself. Has there been another time in your life when you've had to accept something hard, and now you are stronger because of it? So maybe it's a relationship that ended that you didn't want to end, but now that that's in hindsight, how are you stronger because of it? Or maybe you have a really heartfelt time of life, like my friends who went through that infertility, me having a daughter with special needs. You guys have heard me talk about how in a lot of ways, my unwillingness to accept the reality of being a special needs mom is what led to my drinking getting so dark, because I didn't want to accept certain things. So I just tried to numb them and avoid them. And we all know how that didn't work out well. But when I finally did start to accept those truths and start to work on it without alcohol, life feels better than it ever has. Life feels better than I ever thought that it could, especially given my age and our family situation, okay? When you're thinking back to an area of your life where you've had to accept something hard, how it's made you stronger, what else did that acceptance open up for you? Can you start to see some threads or some lines through other good things, other empowering qualities, other situations that came about because you finally just accepted what you needed to in that situation? So I encourage you to spend some time thinking about that. 2 more things that I want you to reflect on as we wrap this up. So if you could fully accept this, if you could fully accept what we're talking about today, that you cannot moderate, that alcohol cannot have a positive role in your life. If you fully accept that, what changes? What changes for you moving forward as soon as you accept those facts? And then what would be possible for you if you stopped trying to moderate, if you stopped even wanting to moderate and started putting that energy instead into building something beautiful that doesn't even have alcohol as a consideration? What could be possible for you then? And if the answers don't come to you right away, that's okay. But this is the kind of deeper reflection that we're here to do. This is the thought-provoking, challenging. I'm really encouraging you to sit with yourself and ask some maybe kind of sticky, uncomfortable questions and see what comes up, because that's where we grow, you guys. That's where we learn about ourselves. That's where we really figure out where we want to go, so that then we can focus on the actions and the behaviors and the beliefs that are going to get us there. That's it for today's episode. If this conversation resonated with you, don't forget to subscribe so you never miss a new episode. And if you're loving the show, I'd be so grateful if you'd leave a quick review. It helps others find this message and start their own journey to freedom. Until next time, keep choosing yourself, keep believing in what's possible, and remember, you are so much stronger than you think.